Assalamu alaikum. Peace and blessings be upon you. In the name of God, the most gracious and the most merciful. All glory and praise belongs to God, and salutating with salutations to the beloved and all the beloveds of God, who include Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his holy family. Thank you so much for tuning into our fourth Divine Clinic Foundation podcast series called Healing is Believing. I'm your host, QW. Joining me is my co-host, the delightful Imam Saab. And today we also have our spiritual advisor with the Divine Clinic Foundation, Dr. Rebert White Muhammad. Dr. White Muhammad is an American scholar and professor. He's an expert on constitutional and legal history, Latin and Caribbean history, and Western Hemispheric Islamic history and culture. He's the author of several books and hundreds of articles. How are you, Imam Saab, today? And Assalamu alaikum, Dr. White. How are you today?
Fine. Wa alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah.
Wonderful. So happy to have you all join us today all the way from Europe, here in Toronto and in Florida. Just wanted to say thank you so much for being with us today. And today we're discussing about healing in a toxic world. And I was hoping, Dr. V, before we start off with that, if you could share with us the spiritual cleanse that the Divine Clinic Foundation is based its essence on, and along with the Divine Hydration Water Therapy regarding your experience, if you can share that with our audience.
Well, I tell you, for many in the audience who may be familiar with Christianity, I can say that it's like a spiritual baptism, but internally. For others who are Muslims and of other belief systems, it's a cleansing, a spiritual cleansing that brings one back to total balance and self. You know, water cleanse. Water changes the atmosphere of what we breathe. Water gives us divine power. We live in water. 90% of our body is water. So therefore, the cleansing that we have is one that is purified by the essence of divinity, by the essence of divine. And what I mean by that is blessed. It's blessed in a way that it gives the water a spiritual essence of self and essence of growth. And when we drink the water, you can actually feel it. It feels like as an energy that's bringing out the toxins. And yes, the toxins, because we live in a world that is filled with toxins. We think in a toxic mind, in a way that's not good. We speak oftentimes toxicity. We function in a way that is not balanced and good. So we need something to come in to cleanse us, to make us purified, to give us the strength, the vitality, the youth, so we can carry on and function throughout our day, throughout our week, throughout our month, throughout our lives. So I invite all of you to take in divine cleansing with the water therapy internally, but also externally. That is, if you have an ailment, if you have a sore spot, if you have a sickness that the doctors cannot really understand, it's time for you to take in this therapeutic cleansing, this therapeutic healing that we have. This is something that is very serious. It's something that is very good. And I guarantee that once you do it, you will continue to do it, and you'll be a better person for it, not just for your community, but for yourself.
Well, thank you for elaborating on that and expressing it so clearly in terms of the benefits that one can ascertain from the spiritual cleanse. Imam Saab, is there anything else that you would like to add on to the cleanse experience?
Yes, of course. Alhamdulillah, beautifully said, Dr. V, with regards to your experience and how how you found this whole ordeal for you, from where you felt you were from, where you came from, and to where you are now, in terms of how you're feeling, and even in taking in respect as well your academic background, your academic expertise as well, and you take all these things into perspective, you realize that everybody is affected by spirituality, everybody, and it doesn't actually take any prejudice against anybody, you know evil or bad energy is doesn't discriminate. Like people discriminate. Evil energy or bad energy or negative energy does not discriminate one human being from another one. Yeah. To it, every single person exists as a host, and there are certain precautions that we have been given to protect ourselves that are evidential in the Torah, that are evidential in the Gospels, and also in the Holy Quran. And these are to do with sin and the level of sin in terms of how to protect oneself. You see, the main reason really why today, even with academics such as yourself, Dr. V, alhamdulillah, that we are seeing a rising number of people who are responding to this treatment in such a way is because of the fact that we're understanding negative energy, because negative energy has consciousness, and we are beings of consciousness. So when we're walking, when we're talking, we have to be very careful about how we conduct ourselves, and that's what Prophet Muhammad says, the awliya Allah teach us this. This was their teaching. The basis of their teaching has always been to be respectful, because you, as a person, as a body, are the receptacle of God's graciousness. Even a smile can change someone's day. A smile. This is why that sunnah is so important. But the smile also brings it along with it some chemical change within the body as well, because it releases good hormones. It blocks certain neurotoxins in the body as well. So when we're looking from that medical perspective, it works. But when we're looking from the spiritual perspective, there's a lot of other things that are happening as well. You see, the thing is, it's how do we prolong ourselves in keeping to a state where we are abundantly happy, or in a notion of peace. Because what we're seeing today is that the majority of the Muslim population, by and large, are suffering. And the reason why they're suffering is because they're not understanding what is affecting them. And they have all the answers in front of them. The only thing is, the fog around them is so dark and so dense, they cannot see it. And like I said, it doesn't matter what denomination from Islam that you're from, or Christianity, or Buddhism, or whatever religion. Because negative energy, like I said, it does not discriminate. It affects every single person. Now, through our Divine Clinic Foundation, the outreach for this is that those who are behind the foundation, they are the family of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and they are beings who have been perfected in every aspect of understanding. With the root being to help cleanse people back to a state of spiritual balance. And that's what I think the main thing that we're having to kind of get people to understand is that there is a spiritual imbalance, across the world. Because, isn't it, Dr. V? I mean, what would you say about that?
Yes, it is a spiritual imbalance. People know that it is. People are looking for some spiritual gift, some spiritual essence, some spiritual direction to bring them back to a holistic manner of the way that God and the holy prophets wanted them and directed us to live. So therefore, there's an imbalance. There's an imbalance with our thinking. There's an imbalance with our foods. There's an imbalance with our government, which now makes all of us pray for negative thought, negative action, negative feelings. I mean, I look at it this way. Sometimes you go to a restaurant, right? And you eat some food, and you're with your husband, you're with your wife, or you're with your family, and you're at this wonderful restaurant, and the food looks delicious and it tastes good, but you're arguing. Now, why are you arguing? You shouldn't be arguing. You're mad at each other. Perhaps the person who is cooking the food have a negative energy that's now has gotten into the food, has gotten into you. So therefore, it's an imbalance from him to you. We need cleansing. We need a vitality. We need something that's going to bring us back. And what the Imam is saying is right on. He is on point. And if we listen to him and listen to his direction, that he is saying that what he says so beautifully, we can create a better world. Because right now the world is looking for answers, and politically, they don't have an answer. Socially, they don't have the answer. The answer must come from divine direction. That's what I think.
That's very, very concisely put there, Dr. V. I have to say, because I
Very
mean,
well.
I mean, because what you've kind of laid out there is, I mean, look, when we're looking at social unrest and social justice, yeah, we're looking at the Malcolm X of the world, the Martin Luther Kings of the world. You know, we've been fighting for human rights since the 1960s in America, against the, sort of the Black Human Rights Act. You know, all of these different things that we're trying to put across, where we're trying to equalize ourselves with our peers, across the different nations, across different racial subtypes. But what we have to understand is that we are all one in the eyes of God. We are all one. It doesn't matter the color of our skin. And like I said, even negative energy does not discriminate. So therefore, we have to come together in unison in understanding the threat that is affecting our very homes, our very existence. I mean, you've said perfectly yourself. You go into a restaurant, you're sitting there, and you order some food, but someone looks at the food in a very undignified way. And I think the thing is, you have to look, when you look at the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and you look at the Sunnah of the Ahlul Bayt and the Awliya Allah, and the righteous Sahaba Ikram as well, who had all the teachings from the Holy Prophet. And they were told that there's a spiritual element, even in terms of the adab towards eating, the etiquette, the manners towards eating, that, you wouldn't have, distraction around you. You'd have people who would serve you, who would be serving you to serve. It wouldn't be a burden to them to serve, because if someone has a burden to serve you, then there's ill feeling around them. There's a negative station around that person. And that will then permeate and penetrate the very molecules of the food. So that old saying of you are what you eat, well, you are. When you eat contaminated food, you are contaminating the body. The body and the spirit and the soul are all connected together. So the soul can never really shine. The soul is then what we would say as pacified, is dormant, because the spirit itself is in a state of struggle. So therefore then it also puts a great deal of stress on the natural resonance and frequency of the human body. Every single human cell in the body resonates at a certain frequency. The heart cells, they are myogenic, means that they can beat by themselves. There's no other thing that's needed for them to beat, but they are able to beat. They're the only cells in the human body that are that specialized, where they have a pulse. So that pulse also carries a frequency, a sound. And the sound, even from what we understand, the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord Almighty, He created the world, where He said, be, and it is. Yeah? That was a sound. And we came into being. And when we understand about how we will go, all of us, is that a trumpet will be blown. So it's an instrument which generates sound. So it's the acoustics. Acoustics is vibration, is energy, is resonance, is frequency.
And that is why we need this cleansing in the United States. America is the most affluent country in the world. You can buy anything here. Most people have 2 cars. They live in wonderful homes. The streets are nice, paved, wonderful pavement. But Americans as a group are very unhappy people. We have a lot of material things, but spiritually, we are dead as a group. We think in terms of power and control. We think in terms of exploitation and ownership. We think in terms of superiority and inferiority. We think in terms of domination and suppression. This makes for a very sick society. No matter if you're living in Beverly Hills, and I was there this past week, or if you're living in New York, or if you're living in Miami, or you're living in Chicago, or anywhere in between. So therefore, we in the United States, this great country, we need this revolution of thought that the Imam Sahib is talking about. All right, a cleansing, a spiritual cleansing from the inside out. Because to be honest with you, and I tell you this, Wahida and the Imam, and to our listening audience, we will not survive as a country, and we will not survive as a race of people, a global people, if we do not embrace this spirituality, this sense of cleansing and divinity, and work to follow the Ummah and the teachings that our great prophets have given to us. If not, we will fall into a depth of hell that is dark and never to come out again. So as you talk about the trumpet, I say the trumpet is like this too. Not only giving out certain waves of music and tones to get us better, but that trumpet is also the last call. Just like you have the on a railroad car or train, the conductor says, "Last call to get on. This is the last call. The trumpet is blowing, and if you want to say something, if you want to do something, you got to listen to the trumpet and get on board."
It truly is, because as you're seeing, everything is energy, and we're talking here about the last call, and more and more movements are happening of showing how science and spirituality are somehow interconnected through quantum physics, and we're seeing how energy is everything, and the need to embrace spirituality in our day-to-day life, and through the cleanse is really the ultimate way of coming back to that balancing of the self and the divine cleanses. And that's just such a beautiful gift that we have in our time, that would take away from all the people running in the society of today in the West, instant gratification, trying to fill those voids, or trying to think that that's what peace is. But truly, it's not that. Until you experience a divine cleanse, then you know what is peace. Imam Sahib, is there anything else you would like to elaborate on healing in a toxic world?
Yes, of course. I mean, I think what the main message that we're trying to is really kind of put out to everybody, the listeners, whether they are from, a healing association, or whether they themselves are under duress and spiritual distress, is that you're not alone. And even with those who are in the concept of healing others, that you must come and understand that there are repercussions of working with evil energy, of bad energy, of negative energy. There are repercussions of working with this, in terms of not fully understanding what happens to oneself when dealing with negative energy. And I think that's something that we do need to talk about in greater detail, because there are many people who start off with good intentions to help others, but then in turn start absorbing the negative energy on themselves, and in turn then start harming themselves and their families. And there is protection that one must take. And I don't mean just by certain prayers or certain, certain wearing certain talismans or something, but because there are realities to all of these things. But it's more than that. It's you yourself. You have to fully understand what you're dealing with. You wouldn't ask a mechanic to perform heart surgery on someone. It's just not the done thing. It's the same way we need to treat spirituality with a lot more respect than we're treating it now. And like Dr. V said, the time to take control is now. Take control of your soul right now, because if you or anyone listening could listen to your very soul, you would hear it. It would be weeping, it would be crying, because it knows the truth, and it sees It sees everything. And we as Muslims understand that on the day of judgment, we will stand before our Lord, and it will be our souls, our hearts that will speak for the crimes that we have committed against our own bodies. Our hands will speak, our mouths will speak, our eyes will speak for us. From that respect, where of the things that they had done. But I'm saying that with regards to the negativity that is affecting people, you have to understand that you have to study negativity in a bit more detail, in understanding how it is affecting you, and that way you can be better informed in understanding, right, I understand that this is negative energy. I know exactly what I have to do. And this is part as well of the cleanse, because we don't just cleanse people, but what we also do is we provide this very valuable aftercare service. So you yourself are equipped with the tools that when you are, then you leave the association, because the Divine Clinic Foundation is a hospital. That's what it is. It's a virtual spiritual hospital. People come, they get the help that they need. And the life cleansing is absolutely essential today, because we are finding that there is negativity going back generations that is catching up with people and is causing impairment on the human spirit, causing a burden. So therefore, if the human being that is born into this world is already born with a disability in their spirit, then that means that even as an adult, they won't have a fighting chance. So we must speak up. We must speak up against our very selves. We have to speak up for ourselves, because nobody else will do that. You see, and this is why we are seeing so many cases of depression, of a lot of these other negatively charged illnesses. And we're trying to understand them. But what I think we need to understand is where are they all coming from? And they're all stemming from the fact that it's all from a spiritual standpoint. It's all to do with negativity. And I think by coming together, even as other healers as well, practitioners, because what we understand is that there are 7 levels of consciousness, but even within the world, that there are 7 levels of the dunya as well, which is the 7 worldly realms as well. And even within those realms, there are an infinite number of realms, just like in terms of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, because that is something also that is very real. So this is what we have to understand, that when the healer is working, from which reality are they working? Because the only reality they can work from is that have been given permission by God Almighty Himself. Whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter. He will always exist. God is the base of all realities, fundamentally, unequivocally. So I think we what we need to do is just elaborate more on the fact that if people are more informed about what is causing harm around us and inside of us, and we understand how to address these from the understanding of the Quran, and also the spiritual uplift and accelerated sort of gift that is given through the Divine Clinic Foundation, essentially a helping hand, the rope of God. Take it, get cleansed, go through it, because you have to experience it, really. I mean, it's all well and good speaking, but it's when you go through it, you really understand it. And when you understand it, it's just, it is an awakening that is unlike anything else. It's an awakening like anything else. And it brings you closer, to your Lord, to your Maker, to your Creator. Even if you don't believe, it gets you to a point of reflection, and that is your starting point of a journey into truthhood, finding yourself. And now you can do that without any setbacks. So all seekers of spirituality, we're advising you, come get your life cleansed,
I like the way how you said that the Divine Clinic is a hospital. In the United States, you hear people say, you ask someone, how you feeling? How you doing? And they say, I'm good. Well, you have to get rid of that arrogance and say you're not good, you're sick. Come to the hospital, the Divine Clinic, and come see our spiritual MDs like Imam Saab or Wahida, all right, and our spiritual practitioners to help us to get back on the track, get back to that balance, get back to the way that Allah, God, has made us to be. But we got away from it. And as long as we stay away from it, we will never achieve our potential. Mentally, we will not get there. Physically, we will not get there. And especially spiritually, we will not get there. We'll be like a man with a limp. You're walking, but you're not fluid. You'll be like a swimmer who's splashing, but they can't cut the water very good. You'll be like a runner who's moving, but he's not running at optimum speed. So come to the hospital, as the Imam stated. Come get this cleansing. Come get this spiritual upliftment. Become a better self. If you don't want to do it for your, if you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for your family, your associates, your community, your nation. I like how you said that, Brother Imam.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Dr. V. Thank you.
So much for all this insight, Dr. V. Imam Saab, so much to reason and resonate for our audience today. This has been an amazing podcast on healing the toxic world. Thank you all for joining us, and inshallah, we look forward to you all joining us next time on our next podcast featuring next week. Assalamu alaikum.